Let's now add more methods into our student class. So before we program in Java, let's get the idea straight on the iPad. So now if you look at what we have done so far, so we got a student objects over here, and the courses array has size 5. You can see that the first 3 slots are now storing addresses for the 3 course record objects over here, and the the 4th slot and 5th slot are pointing to null at the moment. Okay, that's really important to tell. Okay, I'll just write it down anyway. Null over here, and also null over here. Okay, so now what we would like to do now is to add 2 methods. And before we define how the methods should work, let's worry about how they should be called first of all. So one will be accessor, the other one will be mutator. Okay, let's do the accessor first. Okay, let's now have a look at this one over here. Okay, you can see that first of all, S over here is the context object, and we are using a dot notation. When we say S dot, that means we are trying to manipulate this particular object over here. Okay, and then the method we would like to define is called getMarks, and it's going to say, given the name of the course, we remember each course has a title, and now you can see that we are trying to pass the name over here. So getMarks, and then we pass a string literal over here, for example, EECS 2030. You can see somehow this EECS 2030 matches the title for this particular course record objects. And what we would like to return is the numerical marks associated with the same objects for the course record. In this case, it will be 0. So the return value for this should be 0. It should return. It should return 0. Okay, so now how do we go about implementing this method? So the idea is very easy. Since you have an array of course records, so you cannot get around with having a loop to iterate through from the beginning until the end of the array. Okay, so and then to see which course objects that is being pointed to actually has the matching title. And that object should really be the one to retrieve the marks. Okay, so now let's just run through this idea very quickly. Okay, so now let's say somehow we're going to go over the courses array, and then we're going to say for, we can use a for loop, and then use integer I as the loop counter. And then we're going to run through from left to right, one by one. And you can see a position 0 over here is pointing to this particular object, which already got, which does not have the matching title, because you can see courses at position 0, and then the title is going to be EECS 1022, which does not match EECS 2030. So we go to the next one. And in the second iteration, we'll see that courses at position 1, and then it has the matching title over here, which is EECS 2030. And in that case, we'll simply return the marks 0. That's what we will do. Okay. So now you can, I think in the previous, maybe you noticed that in the previous illustration, I think I meant to say the 0 should be from this 0 over here rather than here. Okay, hopefully you noticed that. Okay, so now let's continue with this. So now how do we go about implementing this idea in Java? So we just need a for loop. Let's see how we can do that quickly. Okay, and then I'll run it with a debugger with you. Okay, so now let's go to our student class over here, and then let's now define that accessor method. So now we're going to say it's going to return the marks. So it's going to be returning integer, because we know that for the course record class, we know that the marks will be integer. Okay, so that's why the return type should also be integer. Let's say get marks. Okay, and then we're going to say string title, the title of the course. Given the title of the course, return its associated marks. Okay, that's what we want to do. Okay, so now what we do is we can simply do as follows. So now eventually we're going to return the marks for sure. So we can say integer marks. Let's say initially just 0, or you can even put -1. Okay, it doesn't matter. Eventually we're going to reassign this to a proper value, and then eventually we're going to return marks. Okay, and now we can say for integer I is assigned to 0. Remember, array indices always start from 0. So go from 0 over here until, for now, let me say I will go until the end of the array and see if that will work. So now, in this particular case, you can simply, you really don't want to just say until 4, because we may change the size of the array later. So now it's better to say this dot courses dot length. Okay, and then we'll say I is less than, in this case, this dot courses dot length. What is that? So this dot courses dot length. So this dot courses dot length. And because when we write this expression here, we write it in the context of students. So this means the students. The student dot courses, so that means the students. So student dot courses dot length. What's the size of the array? That should be 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 elements in the array, so that should be 5. Okay, and then we have I plus plus. Okay, that's what we have. And then every time, so let's say, let me make it a little bit more wordy for you, but actually hopefully that's more understandable. Course record, let's say the current one we are looking at is assigned to, okay, courses at position I. So what does that mean? Okay, let's go to the diagram over here. Okay, you can see, think it this way. We have our integer I as a loop counter. Initially, I is equal to 0. Okay, initially 0. And then when we say courses I, what does that mean? That means courses I is going to be this slot over here, which stores the address that's pointing to this object over here. Okay, that's courses I. Okay, and then what about the next one? When and of course every time we're gonna say I plus plus at the end of the iteration. So that means I will be incremented from 0 to 1. And then what will courses I be? So that will be courses at position 1. In that case, it will be referring to I will become 1 in the second iteration, which will be referring to this particular slot, which stores the address for this particular course record objects. Okay, so basically what we are trying to do is we're just creating another current as a local variable to say, just for us to make it easier for us to write the expression following this line. I'll show you. Okay, so now the current, for example, initially let's say I is simply 0 in the first iteration. So that means current is going to point to wherever courses at position 0 is pointing to. Okay, that's the first iteration. What about the second iteration? Let me use a different color. So in the second iteration, so let's say in the second iteration, I will be incremented to 1, right? From 0 to 1. In that case, the current is going to assign to, you can see courses at position I, which is at position 1. In that case, it's pointing to this particular course object, and we're going to say current is now going to point to this particular course record. So we keep shifting what current is pointing to the right by 1 position, right, in the array. Okay, hopefully you see that. And then, so now once we are done with this, so we can say, what should we do with the current? So current is the current course record we're examining. So we want to see if its title is matching the title we are looking for. If it is matching, then the marks should be returned. Otherwise, we should go to the next one and see the next matching one. Okay, let's see what we can do. So now what we do is we can say if, let's say over here, current, which is a course, dot, title, which is a string, dot, equals, you can see over here, again, we are using dot notation. You can see current is a course. Current.title is referring to its attribute of type string. And for string value, we can say dot equals with another string value. If it is equal to title over here that we're looking for, in that case, this is a course we're looking for. And what should we do? We can simply say the marks that we're looking for is reassigned to current.marks. Okay? You should really want to get used to the dot notation over here. We use that a lot in this particular tutorial series, and dot notation is really the main learning outcome for this tutorial. Okay, so now you can see that the convenience of using current over here. What if the current was not declared over here? What should we do? let's say if we did not declare current over here, what we had to do would be courses I, replace that courses I, and then courses I. I wouldn't say which one is better, but whichever one you feel comfortable to read and write by yourself. But you should really know both. Okay, but I'll just leave the current version over here, so you can go back to the current version if you prefer. Okay, and then eventually we just return the marks. Okay, let's see if this will do. Basically, what we're trying to do is we'll scan through the array one position by one position, and then as soon as we actually find that the current course record we're looking at has the matching title, we're going to set the marks to be a corresponding one. And then we'll keep going until the end, and then we'll stop, terminate loop. So that means at the moment, how many times will the loop run? It will be from 0 until this.courses.length minus 1. So that'll be exactly corresponding to the size of the array, which is, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. But do you expect to run into any trouble in this case? Okay, my little bit hints for you. What would happen, let's say, when we run, so this will be the first iteration, second iteration, third iteration. So these seem to be okay. But now, what about the fourth iteration and the fifth iteration? You can see for these two iterations here, they do not point to any objects of type course record. In which case, what's going to happen when we say courses I? For example, I could be the value, let's say, 3, and I could be the value 4. What if we say courses at position 3.title.equals title? What's going to happen? So you can see that courses at position 3.title, what's that going to be? Or to be more precise, what's going to be courses at position 3? Null. And then null.title, as we illustrated before in a previous video, is going to give you null pointer exception, right? Okay, so now I'm just talking about concept. Let's really verify that we're going to run into trouble for this particular one. Okay, so now let's go to our student tester over here. Let's get the marks. Okay, as out. Okay, let's say marks of EECS 2030. So now we can say s dot get marks, and then we can say EECS 2030. Okay, now what's going to happen? Okay, now if we try that, let's see if we will really run into the null pointer exception as we expected. Okay, let's see exactly if that's the case. Okay, did we actually, okay, s.getMarks EECS 2030. Let me just make sure I'm really running the right thing. Okay, we do expect to see the null pointer exception. So EECS 2030, and then we have students over here, and then we also got getMarks, and then title dot equals title, the course at the length. Okay, so let's try again. Student tester here, and to be safe, let's say run student tester. Okay, so we do have the null pointer exception that we expected. Okay, you can see that. So where did this null pointer exception occur? You can now click on this. You can see that it occurs somewhere over here, exactly line 61. You can see that information over here is very valuable. So let's try to see what this is trying to tell you. Okay, these two lines over here. Okay, so now it tells you that in the main method of student tester, in line number 44, okay, it goes from bottom to top. In line number 44 of the student tester class, we are trying to say s.getMarks. Somewhere along the way of executing s.marks, it's giving you the null pointer exception, but exactly which line. So the next one, so line 61, you can click on the link. Line 61 of students, it tells you this line gives you trouble. It's exactly as I illustrated to you. Okay, but now let's now use the debugger to see exactly how this is going to occur. Okay, let's go back to student tester over here. Let's put a breakpoint here, and then we'll run the debugger and see exactly how this is going to occur. Okay, so now we stop here. Let's now step into the execution for the getMarks over here. Okay, so now let's think about this. We expect to see no problem when we go to for I counter 0, counter the loop counter being 0, being 1, and being 2. The first 3 iterations should be okay because they refer to the some object that's not null. But starting from the 4th iteration over here, we're going to run into trouble. Okay, let's see how it is the case. Okay, so now what we can do is initially marks let's step over. Initially marks will just be -1, and then we initialize the I counter to be 0, and now you can see what's I at the moment. If you move your mouse over, I is equal to 0. Courses at position 0, and then the title will be EECS 1022. So we don't expect this Boolean expression to be true. So if we step over, it's gonna skip, right? So now we skip this if branch over here, and we go back to the beginning of the for loop. And then we're gonna increment I++. And then when we go to the same expression again, I has been incremented from 0 to 1. So now I will be just 1. So what's courses at position 1? Courses at position 1 is referring to this object over here, which has the title 2030. Okay? And then if you do that, you will see that we do enter the if branch, and then we reassign courses I.marks, which will be 0. Okay? That's what we will do. Okay? So now, what about the next? So we'll keep going because we want to iterate through all the courses. Okay? So now, if you try that, again, the 3rd iteration, you can see I is now, the value is 2. And then courses at position 2 will give you the title EECS 3311, which means we'll skip that again. Okay? And then now, here comes the thing. Now I is now equal to 3. So that means we are now over here, okay? And then you can see that what's courses at position I, which is 3. What's courses I? 3. How do we see that? So if you see also over here, you can see courses I. First of all, you can see that's null. Also, the Android Studio debugger is really smart enough to show you that the expression that you care for this particular line, courses I is equal to null. And then if you expand the courses array, you can see that it only got 0, 1, and 2. And then courses at position I, which is 3, is actually null, so it's not listed here. Okay, it's a little bit tedious, but you should really know how to do this. Otherwise, you'll run into trouble when you write a code like this. Okay, and then we can see that we can expect to see courses I is going to be null, and now the title will give us null pointer exception. That's exactly what's going to happen. You can see courses at position I, the marks will give you java.len null pointer exception. That's exactly what's going to happen. Okay, if you try to step over again, so now we run into trouble. So the program will just crash and stop. Okay, so that's what I want to show you. Okay, so now how do we fix this? The way to fix this would be, so some of you might be thinking about the following fix, okay, which is okay only for this particular example, but only for this particular input, but it's going to fail in general. Let me tell you the intermediate fix. Some of you might be thinking that as soon as we actually found that, it's actually a matching title over here, we can simply say return courses at position I dot marks, and then I'll just comment this out. So this is an okay fix only for the inputs that we have over here, the title. Okay, the particular one I gave to you, which is EECS 2030. Okay, I'm gonna give you one case where this solution is also going to fail. What if the title we give over here does not actually exist in the array over here? Okay, you can see we got 1022, we got 2030, we also got 3311. What about I give you EECS 2011? Okay, what's going to happen over there? Okay, let's see. That means I still never got a chance to enter the if statements. You can see that the return statements only works if we do have a course title that matches the title over here. But when you call this method here, you have no idea whether the people using this method is going to always give you some existing course title. If they don't, that means you will never get a chance to return. In that case, it will still scan through the entire array, in which case you can still get to position 3 and give you a null pointer exception. Okay, let me just illustrate this to you. First of all, let's double check. This solution only works if the course title actually exists in the array, which is not general enough, but let's make sure it works first of all. Okay, let's now go to your student tester over here. So now let me just say launch, and let's see what we have. Okay, you can see that marks of 2030 is 0, which is correct. So only works in this case. I'm going to make a comment for you, and then I will tell you how it can fail. This solution only works if input title exists in the array. In which case, if 2030 exists, it's going to return before we reach the third or fourth position. We will. But, okay, let me just, okay, but null pointer exception might occur if title doesn't exist. Okay, I just put it in the same line so it's more obvious. It's associated with this particular line. Okay, the solution works if input title exists, but it doesn't work if the title does not exist, in which case we got null pointer exception. Let's see exactly how that's gonna happen. Okay, now if I just go back to student tester over here, if I say system.out.println over here, and then marks of, let's say 2011. Okay, and then I'll put 2011 over here. Okay, let's see what's going to happen here. Okay, so now 2011 does not exist in the array of courses, right? 2011 not here, 2011 not here, 2011 also not here. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. If I execute this block of code, and then you will see that we still got a null pointer exception. You can see we could retrieve 2030's mark, but for 2011 we couldn't. Okay, now you can run the debugger by yourself, but I'll just briefly mention that why you got into this exception here. Let's think about how the loop is going to run. When the loop counter is 0, so now we got a title 1022, which does not match 2011. Position 1, 2030 also does not match 2011. When we go to position 2, also 3311 does not match 2011. So now we'll go to the next position until the end, remember? So that's, you can see, in general, the real problem is this condition over here. We say that in general, we should, no matter what, we should always go in until the end of the array, even though we have some null slots in the array. Okay, remember when we first created the array, we say that we can have up to 5 courses for each student, up to 5. That means at some moments we may not have exactly 5. It might be 0, might be 1, might be 2, might be 3, might be 4, and might be 5, right? So there are many possibilities. So now this is exactly the case where not all the slots of the array are occupied. Okay, so some of them are pointing to null, especially starting from at some point until the end. The slots are null. So how can we actually solve this problem in a more general way? Okay, so I'm going to comment this out. So I would suggest you don't try this kind of solution over here, because in general, it doesn't work, as I illustrated to you. Okay, be careful. Okay, so now I'll just leave the comments there for you. And then, so now how can we solve this problem over here? The way to solve this is as follows. Okay, so now we want to change this a little bit to say, it somehow makes sense to say, if I want to examine which course title may match the one I input, let's say 2011, let's say 2030. So I only have to look at the slots that are actually not null. For those slots that are actually already null, I shouldn't really bother to even look at them. Okay, for our particular pattern, we know that NOC is currently pointing to 3 over here. NOC, you can see the value is 3 over here, right? Okay, let me just illustrate that very quickly. You can see that NOC is now 3. you can think about conceptually, NOC is pointing to the index 3. That means any index value that's strictly smaller than NOC, in which case will be 0, 1, and 2. So these slots are guaranteed to be occupied already. So given that we are following the pattern that we have taught you in the previous video. So any index that is strictly smaller than NOC is guaranteed to be occupied. So in this case, we can say that we'll only go from counter starting from 0 and only go until NOC minus 1. In this case, 2. Okay? Because you can see 3 minus 1 will be 2. So that's the idea. Okay, so this tells you the most important thing for this particular video. So whenever you're having an array of objects that you're storing as attributes, you should not try to whenever you want to get some information out of the array, you should not try to scan through the entire array. You should always only use the NOC as a reference point for you. Okay, so now that means, okay, I'm gonna just cut this and then I'll put it back later. Okay, I'll say I is less than this dot NOC. Okay, that's the solution. Okay, so now at the same time, I'm going to say the following. Warning. Is wrong state condition. Because when NOC, because there might be slots of the array that store nulls. Okay, exactly what we saw over here, right? 3 and 4. So now one more small question for you. What would be the value of NOC if the entire array is fully occupied? Which means we have added 5 courses. So if we have added 5 courses, the NOC will be exactly 5. That means NOC, rather than pointing to here, NOC will be pointing to here, right? In that case, NOC will be exactly equal to 5. In that case, if you try to apply the same mechanism over here, this dot NOC will just be 5. So we'll still go through 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, still the entire array. So nothing missing over there. Okay, let me just put that special case for you. When the entire array is fully occupied, i.e. maximum number of courses, and then we can say course record objects addresses are stored, right? So we store this many addresses. Well, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say in that case, the value of NOC would be 5, right? Or would be exactly this many. Would be exactly this. Okay? Would be exactly this. Remember, when we first created the array, the size of the array is maximum number of courses. Okay? So now it will be exactly that. The value of NOC will be maximum number of courses and the iteration, and we are guaranteed to run exactly, you can see, starting from 0 and strictly less than this dot NOC, which is maximum number of courses. That means we run exactly maximum number of courses iterations. Exactly this many. Okay, so this is a little bit requires some thinking about how the pattern works. So we're just providing insight to you. So you should really review this concept more carefully. Okay, so now, so what's really important over here is to say, so you should, whenever you're trying to go through the array, you should always use the counter over here as the reference point, as to say that's the largest value we're going to look at as index. Okay, NOC minus 1. That'll be always the case, rather than the length of the array, which can cause you, which can trigger the null pointer exception. Okay, so now let's go back to our original tester over there, and let's now test it. Okay, so now, so for 2011, in this case, what do we expect to see? You can see that now for 2011, because we know that we'll never get into the if statements, that means the marks will remain to be minus 1. which is okay for now. We'll introduce some error handling mechanism, some simple ones later in a later video. Okay, let's now run the tester again. Okay, so now it will just work without the intermediate return statements. You can see. So now 2030 will be 0 and 2011, which does not exist, will be -1. Okay, so now that's about this particular accessor method. Okay, getMarks. Okay, so now let's do something that's very similar. Let's do another Mutator method, which is going to change the marks for each course, because every time if you can only get a marks for the course, it's very limited. You also want to be able to change the courses, right? You may want the student to be regraded. Okay, now the second method I want to do for this video is, let's say here. Okay, so now S is still the context object, so still this object over here, and then the setMarks is going to be a Mutator method returning void, and it takes 2 inputs. So now we say that it's going to take the first input will be some course title, like for example CS 2030, and we know that it's going to match this particular object over here. We know that, and then we want to change its marks from whatever the current mark is to 65. That means we want to change that to be 65. So the process is going to be very similar to what we did for getMarks. We're just going to add a little bit detail over there, a little bit additional step. So again, we're going to go over s.courses over here, go over the array. And as we learned that, we should only go from 0, 1, 2, and strictly smaller than the current NOC value, okay, rather than the length of the array. That's really important to note. Okay, and then we know that as soon as we find the course record to be change the marks, we'll simply set the mark, because we got a setMarks method for the course objects. We'll set that to be whatever it is, for example 65. Okay, so now let's do that very quickly. Okay, let's define a new method over here. So let me just copy the contents of comments over here. Given the title of the course and new marks. So now rather than return, we're doing a Mutator method. Change its marks to be the new marks. Okay, so now we can say void, let's say setMarks. So string, also we have title, but now we have additional inputs. So we can say integer, you can say n new marks, or it's spelled it out, new marks. Okay, so now let's make it more precise. Okay, so now we know, as we learned from before, this is the pattern that we have to follow. Okay, over here. Okay, so now we'll say for integer I is assigned to 0i less than this.noc and I plus plus. Again, the most important thing you should really understand is why we really should use I less than this.noc as opposed to this.courses.length, okay, to avoid null pointer exception when the array is not fully occupied, okay, when there are some null slots, okay. And then we can say if courses the position I dot title dot equals title, in that case, so now rather than set some marks to be some value, we're gonna say, so we can say courses at position I dot setMarks. The reason that this will work is you can see courses I, for example, courses at position 1, let's say, okay, let's say for example, courses at position 1 is referring to this particular course record objects, and we know that what we can use a dot to say we want to call particular Mutator method on this particular object. So courses at position I is referring to this object here, and then we can go further by calling a Mutator method. Okay, so now that's why we can say setMarks. But what the marks should be, we just say it should be the new marks. Okay, whatever new marks over here is. Okay, and that's it. Done. Okay, so now let's try. So now what we can do is we can now go back to student tester over here, and then what we will do is, okay, now let's do the following. So now let's expand the previous one a little bit. We can say the marks for 2030 and for 1022 and 3311. Okay, so now what we will do is we'll say 1022, 2030, and 3311. So these are the three courses we have: 1022, 2030, and 3311. And then we want to see what their marks are. 1022, 2030, 3311. Okay, so now first of all, let's see what they should look like. Let's do that first. Okay, you can see that 0. Have we set? We haven't set the mark yet. Not yet. Okay, so now before we set the marks, it's going to be 0, 0, 84, and -1. Okay, 0, 0, not before we set it to 65. 0, 0, and then 84. 84 is actually from the previous one over here. Okay, but we're going to set it again. Okay, and then -1 over here for 2011 because it doesn't exist. Okay, good. So now we want to set the mark. We want to set the marks. How do we do that? So now we can say as out after setting EECS 1022 marks to, let's say I don't know, what about 72? Okay, let's do 72. And it's because it's a mutated method, so it does not return anything. So we can say s dot setMarks EECS 1022, and then we can set it to be, let's say, 72. Okay, and then let's do also for all the other two. Okay, after setting EECS 2030's marks to, as we want to do, we need to do 65, let's say. So I believe it's C+. Okay, 65, and then EECS 2030, and then set it to 65. And finally, after setting 3311 to, let's make it higher. What about 81? Okay, it's an A. 81, and then we'll do 3311. Okay, that's what we have. All right, so we set the 3 marks, and after these, what should we get? Let's see what we will get. As out, and then after this, we can just print out s dot to string again, so we can see exactly how the 3 courses will be changed for their marks. Okay, so now you might be wondering, what about we also say let's do one more line. Okay, after setting EECS 2011, let's say to some marks, let's say 61. Now what's going to happen to 2011? Because 2011 doesn't even exist, what it will do is it will simply just go through the loop over here. It's going to scan through from index 0 until NOC -1, which will be exactly these 3 slots over here, 1, 2, and 3. None of them has the title matching 2011, which means we never get into this particular branch for the if statement. So that means we never do anything, just do nothing. Okay, but that's okay, because we didn't forbid the user to pass any non-existing course, so that we should also support that. Okay, student tester over here. So now what do we have? So now let's try to run the program, and let's see what the output should be. So now let's be careful over here. You can see now after setting the marks, right? After setting these marks over here, and then NOC is still 3. We still got 3 courses. We haven't added any new course, but now you can see that EECS 1022 we got grade B 72, and also for EECS 2030 we got 65, which is C+, and also for EECS 3311 we got 81, which is A. And we still got the 2 null slots. And because we actually did the loop by using this .noc as the upper bound for the loop counter, so we are guaranteed we actually never check these 2 null slots as part of the loop iterations. Okay, that's really important. Okay, so now we have done the two methods, one mutator and one accessor. Okay, so now what we would like to do, let's see what's left. Okay, So now what I want to show you very briefly as a preview for the next video is to see as follows. So now if you go to the, let me close the course record class over here. If you look at these two methods here, you can see that for the getMarks method, you can see that we are trying to go over from 0 until this.noc minus 1, right? We got strictly less than. And we do something over here to say if this condition matches, we're going to do something. And you can see that for the setMarks, we're doing something very similar. We are basically repeating the same header of the loop over here. We are also repeating this if condition over here, and then we'll do, just say if that matches, we'll do something, right? So we are really, again, duplicating the code for twice. As we know, the array, the attribute courses is of type array for this particular class. So we should really expect many future methods to really iterate through the array to check something. If every time we add a new method, we have to repeat this pattern again, that means our code is going to smell a lot. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how we can define a helper method to get rid of this smell.